Welcome back to Coding Commanders. I'm Commander Candy, and today we are going to learn some super important JavaScript basics by creating a JavaScript dice game. As you can see, our main project folder is called Dice. Inside Dice, we're going to have a file called index.html where most of our code's going to be written. I'm also going to have a file called style.css, and I'm also going to have a directory called images. We are going to start off with a simple HTML page structure. We have our page head, then we have our page body. Inside the head, we're going to have a title, and we will also link our CSS style sheet. I'm not really going to go over all the CSS for today's project, but if you want to know more about it, you can go to codingcommanders.com/dice. Inside the page body, I'm going to have one row. And inside that row, I'm going to have 4 columns. Each of the columns are equal width. To find images of the dice faces that you choose to use for your game, you can go to codingcommanders.com/dice and use mine, or you can just go to Google and search no copyright clip art, and then search those platforms for dice faces. Once you find the images you want to use, you can use your favorite image editing software. I like Pencil Sheep on Linux and Paint.net on Windows, and then you can just go ahead and change the colors to match whatever style you choose for your game. Now all my images are saved inside the image directory. The first thing I'm going to do is put a heading in our first and our second column. The first column is going to say your dice, the second column is going to say enemy's dice. Then I'm going to put 2 image elements in the first column and 2 image elements in the second column. These are going to be the 2 dice that you roll and the 2 dice that your enemy rolls. I'm going to start all dice off as D1s, and I'm going to make the alt text say roll : space 1. For the enemy's dice, it's going to say E1 because I have 2 different color combinations, one for the player and one for the enemy. Our third and final column is going to have another image element containing a GIF called good luck. This image element, we're going to have an ID called message because it's going to change depending on what the player rolls and what the enemy rolls. And the alt text is going to say good luck. This alt text is also going to change depending on what happens. Underneath that GIF, we're going to have a JavaScript button element. It's going to have a class called greenBut, which corresponds to a CSS class inside my styles sheet. On click, this button is going to set off a JavaScript function that we're about to write called throw dice. The text is going to say play. I made a little mistake. I forgot to write the file extension, the .png, at the end of each of these images, so let me go ahead and fix that right now. This is what our game looks like right now. I just have to go ahead and add IDs to all our dice images, his dice 1 and his dice 2. At the bottom of our page body, we're going to add our script tags. This is where we're going to write our JavaScript code. To correspond with our onClick event, we're going to call this function throw dice. So when the user clicks this button, this function is going to automatically be triggered. The first thing we're going to do is randomly generate 4 numbers between 1 and 6 to simulate rolling each of the 4 dice, right? Because the player has 2 dice, the enemy has 2, so we're going to need 4 random numbers, 1 for each of those rolls. If you don't understand how to generate random numbers in JavaScript, I do have a whole video and written lesson, which I will link in the description below. The src property of an image element gives that image's location. So now we want to write the code to make sure the appropriate image is displayed to the user that corresponds to the random number that was generated. So if for the player's first dice, the number 3 was generated, we want to display to the user the dice face with 3 dots on it. Each of the 6 dice faces for the user are named D1.png, D2.png, and so on. For the enemy, they're named E1.png, E2.png, and so on. This way it's going to make it really easy for me to use string concatenation to format the src values for each image element. Now we're going to use Document.getElementById to reference each of our 4 dice image elements: my dice 1, my dice 2, his dice 1, and his dice 2. .src is going to allow us to change the file location property of that image element. Now we're going to use string concatenation in order to format the src property of each image element. The player dice are going to start with images/d, then we'll add our random number that was generated, and to that we will add .png. For the 2 enemy dice, we are going to start with images/e. To that we will add our random number that was generated, and to that we will add .png. Next, I'm going to fill in the IDs for the 2 player dice and the 2 enemy dice. My dice 1, my dice 2, his dice 1, and his dice 2. I made another silly mistake. I forgot to write the function keyword in front of my function throw dice. So now that's situated. Now to set the alt property on the dice images. Alt is what's going to display if the image doesn't display, and if somebody's visually impaired and using a screen reader, that's what the screen reader is going to read to them. I use string concatenation for the src property. For the alt property, I'm going to use an array. You can use whichever method that you like. So here's an array. Remember, arrays are indexed starting at 0. So this is going to be indexed at 0, indexed at 1, and so on. Then again, I'm going to do document.getElementById. Here we're going to have .alt, and it is going to equal the name of my array is side alt, so it's going to equal side alt with the index of the random number -1. Now let's fix up our IDs and the random number we will use to get the index. So this is what our dice game looks like so far. Now see how on my final dice game, depending on who wins, or if there's a tie, a different GIF image is going to appear over here. So this means that you lost. The way you win is to have a higher dice roll. So if D1 plus D2 is higher than E1 plus E2, you win. If it's lower, you lose, and if they're the same, like here, 6 plus 2 is 8, 5 plus 3 is 8, it's equal, so then it's a tie. If you would like to pick out your own GIFs, you can simply just go to giphy.com, and once you're there, search out winner, loser, equal, whatever you would like, and they have some really awesome GIFs you can use there. So we are going to write another function, and we are going to call this function who won, because it is going to determine who won the game. The parameters this function takes in are going to be rand1, rand2, rand3, and rand4, our 4 random numbers. Let's declare a variable called player points, and we are going to let it equal rand1 plus rand2. Now let's declare a variable called enemy points, and it is going to be equal to rand3 plus rand4. Now down here we're going to have another function that we are going to call winner, and it's going to be a function of, let's say, player and enemy. Player is going to be equal to the total points the player earned, and enemy is going to be equal to the total points the enemy earned. In this function, it's going to determine what GIF is displayed, the loser, the winner, or the equal GIF. So we're going to have some simple if statements. If the player is less than the enemy, so in this case the enemy won, it's going to do one thing. If the enemy is less than the player, so in this case the player won, it's going to do something else. And if the player is equal to the enemy, it's going to do something else. If the player loses, we are going to just return the name of the GIF we want to display, which is loser.gif. If the player wins, then we are going to display twerk win.gif. And if it's a tie, we are going to return equal.gif. So let's come back here up to our who won function. Let's declare a variable called Giphy, and we are going to set it equal to the return value of the function winner with player points and enemy points plugged in. Now again, let's do some Document.getElementById. And if you remember, the ID of our image element where the GIF's gonna go is message.src is going to equal, and I have these GIFs saved in the image directory. So images dash plus Giphy. Boom. And now let's plug in a alt text, and I'm just going to have the alt text equal to Giphy. I could make something a little bit cuter, but I think if somebody sees loser.gif or twerk winner, they'll get the idea of who won or lost. When you do this at home, if you want, you could use some string concatenation or arrays in order to make a little bit better alt text. Now let's come back up to our throw dice function, and in order to display the appropriate GIF, we are going to call the function who won with the parameters rand1 through rand4. Boom. So this is what our game looks like right now, and this is where I'm going to leave you. Please comment below and let me know if you'd like me to do a follow-up video where we keep score throughout the different rounds of throwing dice. Thank you for watching my video, and until next time, happy coding!